So I'd like to just confirm a lot of the stuff that Carla was saying about the Facebook and using the videos and those types of things. Videos are extremely important now. I will tell you, don't put the videos on your homepage if you can help it, because they make your website load slow. So you could put a picture there that makes it look like you're going to get a video, but when you click it, have it load somewhere else. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Awesome. Okay. So here's what my goals are today, is to help you get more new patients every month, make those patients higher value, and not getting bogged down in all the technical stuff or paying outrageously for Google clicks or Facebook. And some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today will probably overlap some of the things that you've heard Carlo talking about, but I think you'll find that it just backs it up. So who am I? I've been marketing dental practices for over 17 years, both in Canada and the US, and we've worked with practices anywhere from startup to right up over 13 million. However, the big ones always get sold to somebody else. We produce all types of marketing, and one of the things that you're going to hear me talk about a lot today is focusing on strategy over tactics, okay? Just a note, Christine is handing out some papers here. Don't look at them. Turn them over. Leave them there for now. They're secrets. And we work both with online and offline. And I'm going to talk to you about a lot of concepts today that will work both online and offline, but I want to have you thinking about them in the online way today, just so you understand that. Where did I come from? I used to work for a company owned by Reader's Digest and Time Warner. I was a top salesman, and I was frustrated because I typically, everything was based on sales, right? Calling on people, and I knew there was a better way, that if I could just go in and make sure that the deal got closed, if there was a way to get leads, that would be a lot easier, but the company didn't do that. Anyway, I ended up finding a system and ended up buying a franchise about 18 years ago. And that system is what I'm going to teach you today. And it just so happens that one of our first clients was a dentist, and we realized that, every time we took on a new industry, it was a really big learning curve. And we were getting success with the dental office, so we said, well, why don't we just do this in other cities? And it worked, and that's where Dental Growth Strategies was born. And we still use a version of that system today. However, in 18 years, the technology has changed quite a bit. So when we started, we didn't even build websites. But we got really frustrated because we realized that the people who did build websites had no idea how to market. So we decided that was a good idea for us to do. So today's going to be kind of like drinking from a fire hose. What that means is you're going to get a lot of stuff thrown at you. You're not going to be able to drink it all, but that's okay. If you get a couple things that help you out here, I'm going to be happy. Excuse me. So I'm going to give you a little crash course in ad history, because I hear this all the time. Well, we should brand ourselves. Yes, branding is okay, but that shouldn't be your first strategy. Here's why. In the early days of advertising, in the 1800s and 1900s, companies had to compete on a local or regional basis, just like most dentists do. And that forced people to use their brains, which typically advertising doesn't use today. Smaller companies got really good at building attention. This is the type of thing that you would see in a newspaper. If you're flipping through a newspaper, do you think all of a sudden, boom, sudden death, heart disease, when a lot of people were dying around you for reasons you didn't understand, right? And that's kind of the way it was back then. Here's an interesting ad, and this actually speaks to, a lot of people say, well, I wouldn't respond to that type of ad. No, you might not. But do you think, who do you think would respond to this type of an ad? Someone who suffers from bunions. Do you think they care if someone who doesn't suffer from bunions answers the ad? Not at all, right? And so this illustrates how advertising should be very targeted at the audience that you want to speak to. Because if you're just being general about what you're talking about, you can get everybody answering the ad, and none of them will convert. Here's an interesting one I found. Teeth without plates. Dr. C.A. Risk. This is an actual ad. Any mothers in here? Do you think that you would stop and read this ad? And here's another thing I want you to see. You see all this text in here? People look at that and go, oh man, there's just too much text. Yeah, maybe for you, if you're a dad and you have no interest in this, right? But if you're a mother, you're going to read all of this because you want to know how a mother's innocent mistake kept her child pale and tired for years, right? So the other interesting thing I want to show you here is the way that the ad flows. It starts at the top. You notice there's no logo up there, no contact information, nothing about the name of the business. That's because people don't care, right? They don't care what the name of your practice is. They want to know, can you solve their problem? And once they understand that you can solve the problem, then they care how to get a hold of you. So why would you put your name up at the top? I see that all the time. Remember the old yellow pages? You'd flip through and it's, name after name of dental office. People don't care, right? They're looking for who can solve my problem, right? Well, after World War II, everything changed. North Americans got a lot more money and a lot more free time. And we got TVs. And that really changed how advertising happened. In 1945, TV was first commercially introduced, and there was only about 7,000 sets, 9 stations, and I think, 5 markets? In 1952, which was, 7 years later, there were 20 million households had TVs. Wouldn't you have loved to own shares in a TV manufacturing company then? So what that did is it created what's called the era of the brand builder. And what happened is that national companies had a way to reach the entire country. So there was a limited supply. Remember, there was only a few channels in a few markets. Now it was all across the country. And these big companies had unlimited ad budgets. They could spend all kinds of money. And the cost went way up, right? So what happened? Commercials shrank from 2 minutes down to 30 seconds. And advertisers didn't have any time to actually build a case for what they were selling. They just had slogans. Now this is going to tell the age of the people in here. Anybody remember this? Aren't you glad you used dial? Ring around the collar. Melts in your mouth, not in your hands. Okay? But you know what? These companies spent millions of dollars pushing that into your head, right? So finally, logos become the most efficient way to advertise. In fact, McDonald's, after they abandoned their "You deserve a break today," they said to the company that was doing their advertising, just flash the arches. Everybody will know what that is, right? And they did, because they didn't have time. Now, they've actually come back a little bit from that. But it's interesting how that went directly just to logos. So national companies made fortunes by advertising on TV. And so that's where the institutional brand building advertising came from. And that was just how you did it, right? Everybody thought, oh, well, if the big companies do it, that's how you do it. Anybody here watch hockey? Okay. I do. I'm a Calgary Flames fan. Anyway, but whenever I watch a Flames game, they tell us, pummels you with ads, right? I bet I see 30 ads in a half an hour. It feels like it anyway. But what do? They have cute little animals, specific colors, but they don't really tell you anything about telephones or cell phones or packages or anything. But what they do is they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a game to pummel you with that and get it into your head, okay? So emulation of this has happened by all different kinds of companies, and it's cost a lot of companies money that they shouldn't have spent. So here's the kind of money that these companies are spending. Pepsi's spending about $1.7 billion, Procter & Gamble, $10 billion. Now that's a whole bunch of different companies inside that. McDonald's, $2 billion. Coca-Cola, 300,000 billboards, 20,000 walls with their logo on it, 5 million glasses with the Coke logo, 400 million newspaper impressions. And that was just in 1930. Now they spend over $4 billion. So you can see that's expensive, right? So here are the symptoms. It's primarily focused on getting attention and not on giving a reason why you should buy that product. And the appeal is almost all emotional. So it relies heavily on design, pictures, and humor, and just getting you to pay attention, but not really giving you any reason to do anything else, right? It's what I call the ad agency formula of creativity and repetition. So creativity is just a bunch of 25-year-olds sitting around thinking crap up. And repetition is just pummeling you with it, putting it into your brain until you can't help but forget it, right? So the deficiencies in the effectiveness of the ads are made up for with repetition. And that's okay if you got a really big ad budget. And platitudes and generalities are usually what are used in there. Well, what about you? Well, dental clinics aren't Fortune 500. You provide a service, not fast food or cars. And your marketing budgets are a lot smaller. Your marketing needs to be different. So you need to get the maximum results for every dollar and lower the risk of trying. Okay? So what you need to do is you need to make your marketing into a system. And that system can include a lot of different things. Your website should probably be the hub of that, but everything there are what I call tactics. Your tactics without strategy is wasting money. Okay? So I'm going to play a little game here. You guys got the sheets that were passed around. If you turn them over, there's look at the first one. Turn the other one over and lay it down face down. So the one without the cross on it, or the lines. Okay, it looks like this. So what I'm going to do, you're going to notice a whole bunch of numbers on there. I want you to start with the number 1 and circle it. Don't do it yet. I'm going to time you. You're going to get 30 seconds to do this. Okay? And I'll say go. Circle as many numbers as you can, starting with 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and so on. And at 30 seconds, I want to say stop, and we'll see how many you guys got. So let's just have a look here. Ready? Go. Stop. Okay, did anyone get 20? Anybody get more than 20? 25? How many did you get? 27. How many did you get? 33. You did good. Have you played this game before? Okay. So now, I'm going to give you a system. Flip over the other page with the lines on it. So what you're going to do is you'll notice that number 1 was here, number 2 was here, number 3 was here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So just keep going in a circle, right? Those of you who figured it out last time probably got a little bit more. So we're going to try the same amount of time, and we'll see if anybody gets any farther on that one. So get ready. Go. Stop. Did anybody get over 20 this time? Do you see there might be a few more hands here? How about over 30? Okay, so we got several people over 30. Over 35. You're good. How many did you get? You are the official winner. You know what? No one's ever got that high before. Yeah. I've probably done this game about 300 times. So does everybody see how having a system makes it a lot easier if you know how you should approach something and have a step-by-step way of doing it that you can get results that are a lot better? And your marketing is exactly the same as that, right? It should be a systematic way of creating the marketing and deploying the marketing. And I know Carlo and his team have a system with the way that they're doing things as well. So it must include a way to create marketing in that system. So here's what we do. We break marketing into 3 parts. The first one is having something good to say, and that's what you do that makes you the best choice for your patients. Then say it well, and that's the strategy of how you communicate your message to the consumer. This is what we call the results formula, and I'm going to give you the formula today. It's just like a math formula, and if you use it, it'll work. And then say it often. And this is the medium and frequency you use to get your message out. Here's what most people do wrong. They start here. They say, oh, we need to advertise. We should put something out there. We should do something on Facebook or get our ads on Google. Well, you know what? Those are all the say it often. That's the medium. That's where you're putting your message. But if you don't have something good to say, you need to start there. because this is going to mess you up all the time. You're going to have a revolving door. Now, I'm assuming, because most of you are here, you have something good to say, right? Or at least you're working on that. So I'm going to focus a lot on the say it well, and then we'll finish up with the say it often. So what if you don't have something good to say? Well, you innovate. And how do you innovate? Well, we use a little chart that looks like this, but you can use however you want. But here's how I like to look at it in a really a quick nutshell. Take a look at what the standard is in your area. What are your competitors doing? What are you competing against all the time? What do you do that's the same as everybody else? And then take a look at what could you do that's unique. And see if you can do that. Is it cost effective? Is it something that you can do that you can compete well with them? And then what about breakthrough? What's something that just totally blows everybody out of the water? If you can get there, it's a lot easier to market, right? I'll give you an idea. We have a client in Calgary who, their office is not big. It doesn't have all the special services and all the things that a lot of their competitors have. But what they did have was an early childhood educator on staff. And they said, you know what we could do? We could provide childcare. Anybody who needs to have their kids taken care of, we've got an ECE here. We'll really focus on that. So the industry standard was nobody to look after your kids. Please leave them at home if you possibly can, because it drives everybody crazy, right? So what did they do? Well, they could have just somebody watch them, but I think it was actually a breakthrough. They did a couple things. They had this ECE. They had a special area in their clinic where they had all different kinds of games and crafts. They had a whole big craft area where they could do crafts with the kids while their parents were getting their work done. And to top that all off, they added what's called Pampered Parent Friday, which they brought in a massage therapist so that the parents could get a massage before or after they were getting their work done. They got certificates for a local spa, all kinds of different things. So what they did was they positioned themselves as the office in the area that was really focused on taking care of the young families, right? They weren't going after the big cosmetic cases. They didn't really care because they didn't have the dentists on staff to do those. So that's what I'm talking about here. So take your current situation, figure out what it is you can do to either be unique or a breakthrough. It might be just that you provide free parking. Everywhere else in Calgary, that's a big deal. Calgary parking downtown will cost you about $70 for a 2-hour stint, so it's ridiculous. So that's all I'm going to say about having something good to say. Say it well. So let's take a look at the decision-making process of most of your prospects. They don't just decide one day to pick up the phone and call a dentist because they need a dentist, unless, of course, they've got a toothache or something, right? They start thinking about changing dental offices a long time before they make that phone call. And so we call this the decision-making process. It needs to speak, when you market to those people, you need to speak to them from their point of view, not your point of view. And you need to start talking to them early in the decision-making process. And this really works well with the patient guides and stuff that Carlo's doing for you guys. Because here's the thing. People are, once they make that decision, somewhere along the way that they're thinking about a new dentist, they start gathering information. They open that file folder in their brain that says dentist. They ask their friends. They look at things online. And their brain is open to learning about that. So if you give them a way to take action down here, instead of just being your competitor who is saying, give us a call, then you can win that business. Because if people could fix their own teeth, they would. But they can't, right? Has anybody here ever seen that Mr. Bean episode where he tries to fill his own teeth? If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube. You will laugh. Make sure you go have a pee first, because it's really funny. But if your office facilitates the decision-making process with important and relevant information first, then you always get the business, because your competitors are just saying, hey, when you get down to X, Y, and Z, give us a call. Here's the interesting thing. only about 1% to 2% of the entire market are there. About 98% are information gathering. So if you can get them to pay attention down here, you don't even have to worry down here because you have now painted yourself as the expert. Because you gave them all the information. You taught them all the stuff that they needed to know about anything that they were interested in. So if it was dental implants and they went to your website, they responded to a Facebook ad, and they went to your website and downloaded the guide to dental implants, and then they got a few emails from you after that, what you're doing is you're moving them along this decision-making spectrum. You're facilitating that decision-making process so that when they get to the point where they're ready to make a decision, they don't even think about your competitors. They just pick up the phone and call you. And my theory is the marketer who takes control over the largest percentage of the market wins all the time. So how do you do that? Well, we do it with what's called the results formula. And like I said before, it's just like a math formula. If you use it in the right way, you'll get results. It starts off with interrupt and engage plus educate plus offer equals results. Interrupt and engage, educate, and offer equals results. If you learn anything today, this is a pretty important thing to do. Use this when you write a blog post. Use this when you do a postcard. Use this when you do a Facebook post. When you create a web page, anything. In fact, this part of it is even more important today than it ever was. Why? Well, we operate our lives on what's called alpha mode. And that's really asleep, okay? Has anybody here ever driven to the office and you get to the office and you go, oh man, I don't remember the last 10 minutes, right? That's because you're basically asleep. But what happens if you ended up running into a rainstorm on the way to work? You would be like, oh my gosh, you're actively engaged. Can anybody remember the day they first learned how to drive? Do you drive the same way now? Do you pay as much attention? No, because your brain automatically does all of those things now, right? So what about alpha mode in marketing? Well, basically, alpha mode makes the consumer oblivious to just about all advertising messages because they're just living their life half asleep, right? So your ads aren't even noticed. You have no choice or no chance to sell because nobody even notices them. So your job is to break the consumers out of that state and snap them into an awake state. Beta mode. So like I said, if you happen to run into a bad rainstorm, right, it snaps you out of that. You start paying attention. Well, beta mode in marketing is where a person consciously notices the ads and they actively seek out information on the services or products that are provided. A person's open to ideas and suggestions about how to solve the problem. So if you do this right, if you interrupt them and engage them, now they're going, here's somebody who can solve my problem, right? And they'll read or absorb as much information as necessary to make a decision. Why is that? Well, it's because we got something in our brain called the reticular activator. And you don't have to worry about remembering this, but it's just a part of the brain that's always scanning your environment for things that are familiar or connected. This includes recent beta mode things. For example, yesterday, I made a drive out to Bowmanville, and I was just getting onto the 401, and I had cars come at me from two different ways into my lane, and I had to hammer on the brakes from about 100 kilometers an hour down to 0. And I was like, oh my God, right? Luckily, nobody hit me. But for the next probably half an hour, I was super engaged in driving, right? Because that had just happened. So that was a recent beta mode thing. Old beta mode things, they're things that you're very familiar with, music, things like that. You'll instantly react to them. Things that are threatening or dangerous, this keeps us from dying, okay? That's kind of important. Or things that are just not consistent. Have you ever walked down the street and you just kind of see somebody coming at you and you go, something's not right there. And you kind of walk a little farther away from them or maybe cross the street. It's because your brain actually knows things that you don't. So what's an activator? It's anything that snaps a person from alpha into beta mode, and it breaks the pattern. So examples of that are a vehicle you're looking at buying. I remember This would have been back in about 2007. I bought one of the very first Chevy Avalanches. Does anybody remember those? They looked like kind of a weird truck with plastic all over them. When I first started looking at them, I thought, oh, these are really cool. I don't see very many, and I especially don't see any black ones. Guess what? As soon as I started thinking about buying a black one, I saw them everywhere. So your brain does that, right? A baby crying in the night. My wife travels with me a lot. We'll go to a hotel, and she'll go, what was that? I think it was a baby crying. Well, I'll never hear it, right? But she hears it because she's a mom, right? Smell of a certain kind of perfume. This always gets me because my mother-in-law wears a lot of perfume. And so there are often times when I'll be walking in a public building somewhere and I'll go, where's my mother-in-law? Hide, right? But that smells are very strong that way, right? You can, all of a sudden, boom, you're back to wherever it was you first smelled that. A song from your youth. You ever hear a song on the radio or when you're in a mall or something and bam, your brain is back to the first time you heard that or something that happened special. So in advertising, activators should be based on hot buttons. And this is where the branding people who can spend a lot of money don't have to pay that much attention. But if you're not going to spend a whole lot of money, you need to make sure your activators are based on hot buttons. If not, you get what's called a false beta. So if I was to say, Carlo would look directly at me and he would say, oh, he is talking to me. That's a positive beta. If I was looking like this and I go, Carlo, and he looks at me and I'm looking over here, he's going to think, oh, not me, stops paying attention. It's the same thing with advertising. So this is an example of a false beta. This was a billboard that was up in Calgary. It's for boots. Here's one thing I will guarantee you, that everybody looked at it. Because you're driving along a busy street and what? There's a half-naked woman up on a billboard, right? What's that about? Well, I'm past that now. Oh, well, that was interesting. Well, they took it down after a month. That tells me one thing, that it didn't work, right? But that's definitely an example. They're typically based on cute, shocking, unusual celebrity or sex appeal. Here's some examples, and I don't know if you can read this, but it says, what would the world's most beautiful women be wearing this year? It's a Lay's ad. And this was, I believe, in Sports Illustrated. You imagine how much money they would have had to pay for a full-page ad like this? And I think it probably paints the wrong picture. But what they did here, they used celebrity, because Miss Piggy was a celebrity, right? I'm not really sure there's sex appeal in there, but it's unusual, right? It's a little bit shocking. She's got chips all over her. Here's another one. Power is nothing without control. Now, if you didn't see this part of the ad, would you know what that ad was for? No, it's a Pirelli tire ad, right? So they really kind of lost it, but a lot of people are going to go, oh, interesting. A woman in a bathing suit running in water. That's cool. Next page. Here's an ad that I actually read that almost killed Perrier in North America. Because what conclusion do you want people to draw here? And if you think about who Perrier's core customer was somebody who didn't drive a truck like that for sure, right? And probably cut their hair a little bit shorter. I don't know. But anyway, they were trying to appeal to a different market. It canned on them, and it actually lost them business. So what are good components of interrupt? Well, newspapers do it really well. They use pictures and headlines to really catch attention. And it's interesting that Facebook is the same thing. Pictures and headlines, right? When you're scrolling through Facebook, what's your goal? Stop the scroll, right? If you can stop the scroll, now you have an opportunity to get people to pay attention. And then your headline can get people engaged. And then and only then does your copy do anything. Online ads, same thing. Or online news sites, they always use headlines and pictures. How else could you do it? I'm not recommending do this, by the way. We did it the opposite, and it worked actually pretty well. So, and this is an example of a Facebook ad, right? We, by the way, can't run this on Facebook anymore. After 7 months of running that ad, they said, oh, disapproved. Thanks, Facebook. They're very, very picky about having ads that have anything to do with personal image, which makes cosmetic dentistry and those types of things kind of difficult to advertise on Facebook. But anyway, we got a lot of really good patients at it for a while. Here's other, just things that are unusual that, oh, a corn cob, what? Right? So once you've interrupted and engaged, so you've stopped people and you've given them the promise that if they keep looking, reading, listening, watching, that they're going to get some information that will help them make a decision, then you need to give it to them. Right? Because that's the mistake of a lot of advertising. People don't give them the information that they've just promised. And if you don't, you just shut them off. So you need to give it to them. Provide as much information as you have time or space to give. That doesn't mean jam everything into every little space you have, but make it look good and give a lot of information. Make it simple. Use the writing guidelines. I've got a document that I can send all of you after this that has some writing guidelines. And just keep it simple. And as professionals, you guys have the tendency to use words that the general public doesn't use all the time. So just be careful. Answer these two simple questions. Why would your prospect favor your business over your competitors? List the answers, and then quantify those reasons. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be able to use this in your advertising, because in a lot of provinces and states, you can't. In the US, it's actually a lot easier, but in Canada, there are some provinces like, I don't know if there's anybody here from Saskatchewan? No? You can't do anything in Saskatchewan. You can't even put a sandwich board out on your sidewalk that says you do teeth whitening. You can put your name, that's okay, but you can't put any services that you provide. Interesting. So what problems do people have when choosing a dentist in your area? So think about that. And ask a new patient when they come in, hey, did you have any trouble trying to pick a dentist? What kind of problems did you run into? Find out what they ran into, because it might not be what you think it is. Okay? And then innovate your business to fix those problems if necessary. And if you can fix those, you're now going to become the default, because everybody else is probably having those same problems. Write as though you were giving advice to a friend. Show you know who they are and understand their issues. What I mean by that is, if you had a good friend from a city that doesn't live where your office is, they phone and they say, hey, I know you work in a dental office and I really need to find a new dentist. What should I look out for? What kind of things should I look for? Give me some advice. That's how you should write it, because that's what you're doing. In any marketing that you're doing, you're writing to a friend, or at least a friend you haven't met yet, right? So make sure that you write it in that way. And that really does show who they are. So once you've educated them, then you need to give them an offer. And the offer is actually a continuation of the education. And they need to be risk-lowering offers. And I know Carlo provides a lot of these things. Things like patient guides, checklists, service cards, and consultations. These are all ways that they can take the next step without paying any money, right? Because here's the thing, they want to interact with you, but they're just unsure. They want to make an appointment, but they just don't know, right? And if you can be the person who gives them that next step, that they don't have to actually pick up the phone and call, because it's a high risk for them to call you, because they're sure that there's going to be a salesperson on the other end that's going to talk them into a lot of expensive dental work, right? Things like teeth whitening. I get asked a lot, why would you have a guide for teeth whitening? Is there anything more confusing for the consumer? They go into Shoppers Drug Mart or CVS in the US and they go, holy smokes, all these things will whiten my teeth? That's amazing. Well, we know that they won't, but they don't know that, right? And the companies that sell those spend lots of money on advertising. So talk to them about it. Give them a way that they can really figure it out on their own. And because you're helping facilitate that decision-making process, this, by the way, is actually a really good sales tool in the office. Leave it laying on the waiting room table. People will pick it up and they might buy teeth whitening. dental implants, choosing a dentist checklist. This is actually kind of an old one, but we were in a situation with this client that they really couldn't say a lot about what it was that they were better at than their competitors, but we could list the things that people should ask. And funny thing, the answers to all those questions led them to say, these are the people that they should go with, right? This is actually an interesting one, 10 ways to save on your dental bills. And I know you have something similar to that used, Carlo. Most people don't ever read this, but they see it and they go, oh, here's a dentist that actually understands that money is part of the issue here, that we're going to have to pay a lot of money that we don't really want to pay, but we're going to have to do it. We can't hardly afford it. So it shows that you actually understand. Anxiety checklists. Who's tougher to get into the dentist than somebody who's afraid? We actually did a survey back, well, I guess it'd be about 17 years ago now. We called, I think it was 1,100 houses in Calgary and asked the question, have you ever put off dental work because of fear? 40% of them said yes. That's amazing, really. So if that many people are afraid, give them a way to say, oh, you know what, sedation might be for you. So checklists, consultations. This was something for all-on-4s that we actually gave to a denturist to make it easier for them to refer to us, right? So we just sent them a whole bunch and said, hey, give this to your patients. Obviously, the denturist didn't do implants. So how to use risk-lowering offers? Well, the first thing, make sure your ads are congruent with the offers. So if you have an implant ad, let's say it's on Google or Facebook, it needs to be congruent with the offer that you're going to have and the landing page. Use sales funnels, and I know, Carlo, you do that through your Infusionsoft system. Absolutely the best way to do it. Because here's the thing, 80% of people who arrive at your website do nothing the very first time they arrive there. They might look through, but they won't pick up the phone. So what do? Just ignore those people? No, you need to communicate with them. So if you can get them to give you an email address by downloading a patient guide, then you have an opportunity then to communicate with them on an ongoing basis. So you would direct your online advertising to these pages instead of just to your home page. And I see this all the time when we'll take over a AdWords campaign, for example. I'll see every ad going to the home page, and I think, what are you guys doing? Because somebody has just clicked on an Invisalign ad, and they go to a home page, and now you're forcing them to search around to find where that should go. Send them to the page. Even better, send them to a page that has no menus. So they can't go anywhere else. There's only one thing they can do, give you an email address and click submit, right? Because people get distracted really, really easily, right? It's like a dog, walking in the park, squirrel, oh, squirrel. They're all over the place, right? So you want to keep people from seeing squirrels, right? Keep them focused on what you want them. Speak directly to your prospective patients in their language. Use the word you a lot. Speak to them. Here's an example. You notice this page here? There is no menus on the top. It's all about the guide that they're going to, right? Here's another one for the 10 ways to save. And then here's the thing. If you promise to give them something, give it to them. Don't make them wait too long for it, right? So, boom, they get this information, and everything that they need is on this page. Then feed them information about your services. So now you've got an email address. Don't wait too long. Follow up with them. Follow up with them. Follow up with them. And you'll notice here, interrupt, engage, educate, and then down here there's an offer. Interrupt, engage, educate, and offer. Same thing, right? When we first did this for this client, one of my patients left me for another dentist. You'll never guess why. Do you think those patients read that? Absolutely. Oh, why would they leave? I probably shouldn't go. Oh, it's because I forgot to tell them about something. Promotional offers. Promotional offers are the things that everybody thinks about when you talk about offers. These are things like special pricing, limited time offers, free giveaways. Use them with very high caution. Because if you start doing, and in a lot of places you can't use them anyway, so you're not even going to, And these are the things that appeal to the people who are on the end of that education spectrum, down at X, Y, and Z. So only use these if you absolutely have to. If your competitors are doing it or something like that, then you would want to do that. You can do that at the end. So for example, these would be, in this case here, help you save more money, free electric toothbrush or take-home teeth whitening, if you book an initial exam and cleaning. Now, in Alberta, where this client is, you can't actually only give it to the patient if they're a new patient. You have to give it to everybody, and that's what they're doing, right? So if the association calls and says, hey, you can't do that, you can't incent people by giving them something that every patient doesn't get, they just tell them every patient gets it. So it's a way that they got around it. So let's try taking this formula and putting it together. And I'm going to use a print ad, but this would be the same for an online ad. So here's the interrupt and engage. Stop hiding from the dentist. Complimentary report explains how to get the dental work you need without the fear. So do you see there's an interrupt there with two different means, right? There's a headline and pictures. So that stops people. And then immediately we engage them by giving them promise. If they keep looking at this ad, they're going to get more information on solving their problem. You notice how we also introduced the offer? That's a good thing if you got limited amount of space, which we did here. So then you teach your prospect how to solve the problem, and your prospect draws the conclusion that you are the obvious choice. So you become the expert. Does anybody know what an expert is? Well, an X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. So I am not an expert. There are two kinds of offers. There's risk-lowering and promotional. Again, you see how the flow of the ad starts at the top, goes down, and the only time you get the information or the logo or the name, it's at the bottom after you've already promised. Now, this was an ad that we actually ran for a client in a magazine. Cost $700 a month at the time, I think. And we tested it. And that's another thing I'm going to talk to you about is track everything. Track everything. Because if you're spending money on advertising and you're not tracking it, you're spending money on stuff that's not working, I'll guarantee you. But there's stuff that's working really, really well that you should spend more money on, right? So track it. So we ran this ad for 1 month and this ad for 1 month. Then we went back to this ad and we realized that that ad pulled more. The reason is we found out that the expense or the cost was also an issue, and we addressed that right in the top of the ad on this one, and we got a higher response rate. So what do you think we did? We went back to this one, right? The only thing we changed was the sub-headline. That's another thing. If you're ever going to test anything, if you're going to do Facebook ads on your own, or if you're going to start doing Google ads or any of those things, if you're going to test them, change one thing at a time. Because if you change a whole bunch of stuff, you don't know what it is that made the difference, right? If you change one thing and you get a little bit better, and you change another thing and you get a little better, or do split testing. But when you do split tests, don't totally change everything. A split test, for those of you who don't know that, is, for example, in both Facebook and Google, you can run 2 ads in the same campaign and they will automatically feed them up evenly. And at a certain point, the algorithm will decide which ad wins, which has the most conversions. So how do you practice and implement these principles? Anybody who wants it, I can email you this sheet. This is something we use all the time. It's a scale of 1 to 5 where we can score the results formula. So you've got the interrupt, engage, educate, offer, and the entire format. And it just scales everything on a level of 1 to 5. If you score a 3 or below, a 3 or above, your ad's probably going to get some results. If it scores a 2 or below, don't bother sending it out because you're spending money on stuff you shouldn't. Basically what it does is it asks things like, was there a headline? If there's no headline, L0. In that case, you get a 0 for interrupt. Now, if there's no headline, you also get a 0 for engage because they're not even going to get there, right? And so on. You score all of them, then you divide by 5. It gives you your score out of 5. And Carlo, if you'd like, I'll give you this tool if you want to pass it to everybody afterwards too. And we'll email it to anybody. Alternatively, if you guys want to do anything and send it to me, I'll evaluate it for you. Just don't be sensitive when I send it back, because I'll probably rip it apart. So let's look at some ads, and I want to illustrate something here. These are ads out of that same publication that we put that other ad into. Anybody see something that they did wrong here? What would be the interrupt here? Have they got any kind of a good interrupt? Nothing. So you know what people are going to do? They're just going to turn past this ad. They started off with 3D Dental Solutions. That's their name. Nobody cares, right? Then they put the offer kind of in the middle, and the educational stuff, which is, blah, blah, blah. Everybody does these things. It's not even in the proper order. Here's another one. Their story could be your story. So if you didn't read from here down, would you know what that ad was about? In fact, you actually have to really dig into here to find out, oh, this is a dental ad. Whoops, they screwed up. Here's another one. Graphic design is really good on this, right? And this does a great job of interrupt, but it also makes the people think a little bit too much. I don't like yellow. Oh, what does that mean? And then, oh, it's a dental office. Okay. Oh, now I get it. People don't spend that kind of time, right? Plus, they actually don't really give them a reason why they should pick up the phone and call anyway or go to a website. So I would say if you want to use this for a teeth whitening ad, use it for a teeth whitening ad. Tell them that it's about teeth whitening, right? Because they spend a fair bit of money on this and it probably didn't work too well. They didn't leave it on there for long. So, and this is something I think we probably did this about 10 years ago. But this worked really, really well. We ran this ad in this publication for, I think it was almost a year. And he got, I think he got 5 or 6 dental implant patients every month out of it. Do you think that paid for it at $700 a month for the ad? Absolutely. I would have recommended him to do it forever. Here's another one we get really good results with. Now, this was run in a publication that is specifically for seniors. Anybody have any idea why we might have done that? Guess who the target audience is, right? Seniors. And yeah, we probably got 4 or 5 consultations every month off of that ad. Now, that doesn't mean you always get patients when you get consultations, but that's an issue from the inside, right? And that I'm not going to deal with that today. So you found something good to say. You've used the innovation table and checklist. You've got all your internal procedures adjusted. You're creating the ad. What I wanted to address here is to try and get you to think about things from John and Jane Smith's point of view. And how we always do it is we'll draw little figures and we'll put a cartoon bubble and say, what are they thinking? And write it in there. And then think about it this way. They're the hero of the story. They have a problem. And all movies are this way, right? You have the hero, and the hero would like to save the day, whatever it is. They've got this problem they have to overcome. And usually along comes a guide. You think about Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, right? And then Obi-Wan Kenobi comes in the guide. Now, he doesn't solve all of Luke's problems, but he helps him, right? And he tells Luke, no, we can help you. And then paints the picture for what the result is going to be. And so you have to think about, where are these people? How can you be their guide? And then write your marketing that way. Instead of trying to be, oh, here we are, here's what we do, we can do all this stuff for you. No. Switch it around and ask questions based on what you think is in their head. Now, how do you do that? Well, one of the ways that we do that is something called the headline bank. And it's basically a document with 157 headlines, and they are the most successful headlines of all time in history of marketing. Not for the dental industry specifically, but for all different types. But what you can do is you can take these ads, or these headlines, and switch words around, and now they become dental headlines, and they work really, really well. For example, when dentists need dental work, this is what they do. That one says, when doctors feel rotten, this is what they do. A little mistake that cost a farmer $3,000 a year. A little mistake that cost an implant patient $5,000 or something like that. You can just take these headlines and switch them around for whatever it is that you're trying to market, and it actually gives you a really good starting point. You might not end up with using them exactly as they are here, but again, something that I can send to you if you'd like. Here's some other things that I would recommend that you do anytime you write something. If you can say, well, I would hope so, don't use it. I see this all the time. Exceptional care, extraordinary experience, blah, 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 right? Well, I would hope so. You're supposed to, another word, professional staff. I would hope so. That's what you're supposed to be, right? Who else can say that? If every one of your competitors can say that, and most of them are, don't. Well, whoop-de-doo. Now, well, whoop-de-doo is okay if you can now say why that's a whoop-de-doo, right? So give them, if you've given them a feature, now give them a benefit. Do you really believe that? Prove it. So if you've said something that people are going to go, I don't really believe it, well, then you're going to have to prove it in your ads. Or what conclusion do you want me to draw? And this actually happens a lot with pictures. People use the wrong pictures in their ads, and people don't realize it, but their prospects are looking at them going, I'm not going there, whatever reason it is, right? And then the last thing I would do is do the cross-out write-in test. If you put your competitor's logo and contact information in your ad and it seems like it, same thing that they do, don't do it. You need to have something that's a little bit different. So here's some quick writing tips. And again, this is something I can send to you. It's really small on my screen. So use plain talk. So don't try and be an English professor. Talk like people talk, because it resonates with them a lot more. Use short sentences, an average of 15 words, 17 words, somewhere in there. 25 is difficult, so keep the sentences short. If you're writing online, break paragraphs up that you would normally keep together on paper, because it's a lot harder to read large groups of text online. So break them up. Use simple language, and instead of words like encourage, use urge. So shorter words, simpler language. Use personal references. So if you can use the word you, like I said. Use live words. Action is very good. If you can quantify anything that you're putting in there as well. If you ever use a number, people have a tendency to do this. Let's say, I don't know, you're doing an ad and you want to illustrate that 98% of people will give you a 5-star review or recommend you or something like that. Figure that number out. 98.73% of people, blah, blah, blah. Because then people say, that must be a real number. You didn't make it up. If you make it exact. So it's kind of funny how that works. Use the word free or complimentary. I like complimentary. Free actually is a little more powerful, but a lot of people are very apprehensive of using the word free. It depends on the amount of space you have. If you've got a really small place to put that you want something to be complimentary, just use free. Long copy versus short copy. A lot of people like to put a lot of copy, but don't. If you can say the same thing in a less amount of words, do it, because it's a lot easier for people to get the idea. Use benefits rather than features. People don't care about your features unless they know what it will do for them. So people don't care if you have a CEREC machine unless they know that they can come in and get a crown in one day. Do you know what I mean? That's an illustration. And use lots of emphasis, underlines, use proper punctuation, italics, all caps, and it really can emphasize the things that you want people to see. This book, come on. There we go. It's a really short book, and if you're planning on doing any of your own copy, get it. It's a really good book, and it probably take you a couple hours to read. I think it's available on Amazon for like $3 or something. Everything's available on Amazon today. I can't believe it. We live in Florida for part of the year, and in Tampa right now, I can order something in the morning and it's at my house in the afternoon. It's crazy. And I mean, stuff you would never think you could get that quick, right? It's like You hear a knock on the door. Here's what you just ordered. We also use something called the ad template. I would never, ever put anything out that looks like this, but this helps you keep the order of everything you do organized. So you have your headline, then a photo that goes along with the headline, a sub-headline with hot button related issues, then your sub-headlines, and you notice how it moves this way. So your offer is down here. And again, the offer should always be very obvious. Putting dashed lines around it will help people understand, oh, this is the offer. You have two types of people that will read your ads, whether they're online or not. There's skimmers. Skimmers will just read through, go, oh, yeah, okay, this is the offer. And a lot of them will go back and read the parts that are pertinent once they realize what the offer is. Then you have readers, and they read everything. I'm a skimmer. I didn't know that there were readers before. I used to have a business partner that was a reader. He frustrated the heck out of me, but I realized that there are people like him. And then you can do stuff like this. Again, I would never put this out, but this is what you send to your graphic designer. And now they make it look pretty. And then you can produce an ad concept. This is actually a postcard that is currently running. We've sent it out 3 times, and it's been extremely successful. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I learned. Do we want to take a break now? Is this a good time to take a break? 5 minutes? Okay. So let me just go through this. I used to farm way back when. I grew up on a farm in Saskatchewan. And here's what I learned about marketing from farming. If, as a farmer, I went out in the spring and I seeded, and let's say that I planted wheat, and a week goes by and I went out and I went, I don't see any wheat coming up yet. Something must be wrong. Well, let's go out and we'll seed it to barley. So we'd cultivate it all up and we'd seed it to barley. Another week goes by, we go out. It's not working. I must have done something wrong. Okay, well, maybe we need to seed oats. So we go out and we cultivate it all up and we seed oats. Do you think I'd ever get a crop as a farmer if that happened? No. You have to be patient, and marketing is like that. You have to have frequency. You have to let people see your ads more than just one time. I talk to people all the time who do direct mail or who do radio, or I'll ask, have you ever tried radio? Oh yeah, we tried that, it didn't work. No, radio works. I know it works. I've done it for a lot of years. But they would run it for 2 months and say, oh, well, we didn't get a whole lot of patients from it. Well, you know what? You probably should run it a little bit longer. We've got clients who've run radio ads for, I think, now one of them has run ads every month for 6.5 years. Guess what? They're booked out. I think hygiene is booked out now till August. So, and it's because of radio. So radio works. And a lot of people tell me radio doesn't work. Direct mail. A lot of people say direct mail doesn't work. It does, but you have to get frequency, right? And so it's the same thing as that. Don't pull your crop out of the ground before it's starting to grow. So the other thing that I always do whenever we're determining where to do stuff, and this is more offline than online because you really only got a few places to do things online. You've got Facebook, you've got Google, you've got Bing, and those are really the only places that you can do online stuff. Anything you're going to do offline, think, ask, survey, check. What does that mean? That means, let's say that your local ad rep for, one of those little magazines that just you pick up in the grocery store, they come and they say, hey, we've got a deal, back page cover for $600 for next month. How do you know whether you should go in there? Well, the first thing, think about it. Do you really want to go in that magazine? Is it the type of magazine that represents you well? That's the very first thing. Take a look through it. Find other advertisers. See if any other professionals are advertising in there at all. If they are, then, you know what, there might be some value. If they're not, it's likely that they've tried, and that goes for lawyers, that goes for physiotherapy places, other professional type services. Ask people in your office, ask patients, do you ever read this? Do you ever pick it up? If most people say no, it's probably a waste of time. If they say yes, then pick up the phone and call some of the other advertisers. Say, hey, I noticed you're advertising in here. We're not a competitor, but we're thinking about it. Do you guys get any calls? A lot of times they won't know, but a lot of times they will. And if you consistently get people saying, yeah, you know what, we get a lot of calls from that, then it might be worth it, right? So think, ask, survey, check. Then you format the strategic message to fit the media. So take what you've written. Remember the ad template? You might not have that big a space. So crunch it down, right? It's the same thing if you're going to put it into a Facebook ad or if you're going to put it into a Google ad. Then test, track results. So don't put anything into one of these publications or anywhere without putting some form of tracking in there. And then don't listen to advice from ad sales reps because they're just there to make money, right? They make a commission on selling you. They're going to sell you the biggest ad. They're going to sell you the most frequency of radio. All the time I'll see what a client is running for radio, for example, and I'll almost every time cut it in half, what they have to put on there to get the same kind of results. Because the ad sales reps just love to sell lots. Reception training. And I know Carlo and his team help out with this a lot, but I wanted to address this because a lot of times people just start advertising without doing some of this. Great advertising is only as good as the person who answers the phone. I can't tell you how many times clients have said to me, oh man, we're just not very busy. And I'll take a look at the amount of calls that they're getting, and I'll go, wow, you're getting a lot of calls. And that's actually one of the reasons we worked with Carlo and developed Practice Call Tracker, is because we wanted a way to be able to tell how many of those calls are actually appointment opportunities and how many of them are closing. And a lot of times we'll see, oh, you're only closing 40% of the new patient calls that are coming in. Guess what? Problem. We got to fix that first, right? Because you're spending money. People are calling, but they're not closing. Use scripts, record the calls, and keep it simple. When I do training, and I'm not exactly sure if this is exactly what you do, Carlo, but the goal that I have for someone answering the phone is to just take control of the call. Just do one thing. Answer the call, give your name. Here's another thing I hear all the time. People answer the phone so quickly that the patient half of the time goes, did you say that was this dental office? Yeah. Oh, okay. They should never, ever have to ask that question. They should know, without a doubt, when that phone gets answered, whose dental office it is. Give your name, and then tell them or ask them if you can help them. Whatever question they ask, you can always answer it this way. Absolutely, I can help you with that. Can I get your name and number in case we get disconnected? Now, there's a lot of different variations of that, but here's why I like to tell people to do that. You just took control over that call. As soon as you start asking questions, you are the one in control, and that caller is no longer in control. Here's the other thing you just did. If that call doesn't go the way it's supposed to and they don't book, you have a phone number. You can call them back tomorrow. Say, hey, you called our office yesterday. You were looking for a new dentist. I just wanted to make sure you found somebody. Now, how different is that to all the other competitors they called? And even if they did find a dentist, do you think they might go, I wonder if I made a mistake. Nobody else called me back, and these guys sound really friendly. I actually had a client say, I just got a call back today because I did that. And they said, yeah, you're so friendly. And the people at the other office that I ended up booking at, they were not really that friendly. So those are the types of things to do. Another question I always like to use is, sounds like you're looking for a new dentist. Is that correct? If somebody's phoning asking for a consultation, an exam and cleaning, any of those things, if they're a new patient, you can ask that question. And again, now what you've done, if they're asking price, for example, you have the opportunity to say something other than give them the price. You can now build value for your office. And I won't get into that today because I know Carlo and his people deal with a lot of that stuff. If you don't have a website right now that's functioning and converting, you might as well not be in business because that's the very first place that people go. We see it all the time where, because we're tracking calls, we'll even do direct mail, and I'll be listening to a call. I don't do that very often because I want to poke my eyes out sometimes, but when I'm listening to a call and I'll hear them say, the person asks, oh, where did you hear about us? Oh, online. And I know that they got it from a postcard because that's the phone number they called. But people think a lot of times the last thing that they did was online. So your website, doesn't matter what you're doing, people are going to end up at your website at some time just to see who you are. It should follow the results formula. It should interrupt and engage, it should educate, and it should give a very clear offer of what you want them to do. If you want them to request a free consultation, make sure that that is all over it. If you want them to request an appointment, that should be very, very simple, very easy. I don't know if you saw a picture of Dr. Gray's website earlier. Did you notice that right at the very top there's a request an appointment button? That's important. All of your offers should have contact forms. I don't recommend putting an email address on your website, and the only reason I say that is because email scrapers will find that and you will get a lot of spam. Okay? There are the spammers out there that have these crawlers that go across the internet just looking for email addresses, and you'll end up getting a ton of spam. Traffic doesn't mean anything if it doesn't convert. So you can have a website that's getting all kinds of traffic. If it's not converting, you need to fix it. This is an example of the Northern Dental Care site, a very good converting website. And you'll notice a few things. It's very, very easy to figure out what it is that you should be doing. And you notice these two buttons up here. Book Now is one. Obviously, that's what you want them to do. The second button is Our Team. Now, why do you think that I would have that up there? Anybody have any ideas? They want to see who you are, exactly. Without a shadow of a doubt, I could show you the website traffic for every one of our clients, and the number 2 visited page, other than the home page, is the team page. They want to know who you are. Do you look like a bunch of axe murderers, or do you look like somebody who they could go and spend a couple hours with, right? Because they're going to have to, right? They need to feel comfortable with you, especially people that are afraid to go to the dentist. They want to know, does this guy look like he's just going to go, right? But that's not exactly what they think, but they're kind of in that mindset. They want to know, who are you? Can they relate to you? A lot of times people don't put staff members on there. But you know what? The people they're going to see most often are the front end staff and the hygienists. Might not be a bad idea to have some pictures on there, especially if you got some good looking people in your office. That never hurts, right? So it's actually a really good idea to have as much on there as you possibly can. Have bios on there. Guess what? Google likes all of that stuff. It's more content. It spiders those pages and says, oh, look at this. Here's somebody who's talking about dental care, and they have the name of the town. So the bios have to be written in a certain way. Content is king. Don't sacrifice content for graphic design. I see this all the time where web designers, they'll create websites that are just wonderful works of art, but there's no information on them. Right? You can find contact information, and that's about it. Google doesn't like those. Link as much content to other content on your website. So if you write a blog post, and that blog post happens to be about teeth whitening, and you write the words teeth whitening, link that back to the teeth whitening page on your website, because that's a link that Google will follow, right? The staff or team page, I already said that, but make sure that you've got offers on that page. Make sure that people can request an appointment from that page. Have other businesses link to your website organically. If you have business people that come in and they're patients of yours, ask them for it. Hey, well, you want to do a blog post and link it back? Don't have a page on your website that has, our not really our sponsors. I'm not sure the word I'm looking for, but businesses that we endorse or whatever. Google doesn't like that. That actually will de-rank your page. But if you can have them, write a blog post and link back, tell them that you'll do the same, and it's a reciprocal thing. Google likes those types of things. SEO. So everybody's heard of SEO, search engine optimization. Kind of important because if you're not found on search engines, people don't even think you exist, right? So pretty important to do. The very first thing before you do anything is make sure that your website is set up correctly. Things like your title tags. If you look at the tab on your browser and you don't see the keywords that you're supposed to be coming up for, your website's not set up correctly. Use things like SEMrush. It's an online tool. It's, I think about $180 a month or something like that, but it will give you information about websites. This is actually one of our clients' competitors, and we were very happy to see that their website had a lot of errors on it. So But these are things that, if this was my website that I was working on, I would look at that and go, uh-oh, we got some work to do, right? And these tools make it really easy to be able to go through and fix those things. If your web people, whoever is doing your website, doesn't use these kinds of things, they're missing stuff. And Google finds it, and your website won't rank as well because of it. Speed is important. When Google ranks your site now, they only test it on mobile, and they test it with a 3G connection. So they don't even use what we typically get here in Canada, which is LTE. They use a 3G connection. So you want to make sure your website is fairly fast, because if it isn't, Google's going to de-rank you. And make sure it's mobile friendly. If it isn't, in fact, they don't even rank sites now based on desktop anymore. They have completely gone to mobile. Use things like GT metrics. Test my site, I think with Google. Tiny PNG, that's another one. One of the reasons websites load very slowly is people don't optimize the images. There'll be pictures on there, they look gorgeous, but it takes 15 minutes for them to load, right? So you want to make sure you optimize the images, and there's lots of tools. Just a free online one is called Tiny PNG. Another free service, GT metrics. All you do is you put your website in, and it gives you a score, and it tells you why it's slow. Or it tells you that it's doing really good. You should be looking for something that's around 2-second load time. If it's slower than 2 seconds, there's some things that need to be done to make it speed up, right? Now, if it doesn't load in 2 seconds, does that mean you're not going to get any traffic? No. But it means you're not going to get as much, because there are people who are on a mobile device. If it doesn't load in 2 seconds, they're gone, right? It's a bounce. Check your local NAP. What's NAP? It doesn't mean you're going to have a little sleep in the afternoon. It is name, address, phone number, and they should be identical across all platforms. A really good tool for that is something called Bright Local we use, and what it does is it checks all your local citations, and it says, okay, you have 21 out of the top 28 sites, and what we found is 16 are correct and 4 have errors. And then down in the bottom of the report, it'll tell you all the errors that you have. What kind of errors? It might be phone numbers that are written differently. Maybe you put brackets on the phone numbers, the area code, and in the other, on your website and your Google My Business page, you got a dash there. They should all be identical. If you have your address, comma, your suite number on your Google My Business page, and on Facebook you've got number 300 and then your address, that's wrong. It needs to be exactly the same on everything, because that's how Google looks at it and says, oh, this is the same business. If there's anything different, it says, oh, well, this might not be the same business, and it will de-rank you. This is specifically good for getting you into that Google Map Pack. When you do a Google search, and you got your ads at the top, and then right below there, there's we call them the top 3, or the Map Pack. That's how you get in there. So this is really important, and I would definitely focus on this as an external thing that you should do for your website. Moz.com is another one. I don't find it as good as Bright Local. It is free, but Bright Local has a monthly subscription. Content. Add content to your website, and change and add it frequently. And you also need to do backlinking from reputable sites. What is backlinking? Backlinking is a link from an external website that goes back to your website somewhere. And Google looks at that and says, oh, if a website has linked to this website, that's a vote of confidence. Backlink means good, right? And the more power that the website that links to you has, the more rank that gets from Google. So you need to do backlinking, and you need to do what's called deep linking. And I know this is getting complicated, but if your SEO people are not doing these things, they need to be. Deep linking is a backlink to a backlink, which gives the backlink more power so that your backlink has more power. So it's really like if you have 2 friends with you, and you meet somebody new, and that new person says hi, and you go, hello. And then this guy goes, yeah, he's a great guy. You definitely should become friends with him. And then the other guy goes, and he's a great guy. And if he says that means that it's absolutely right. So the person that's just come into the group says, oh, wow, this must be a really important person. And that's kind of the way Google looks at it. It's kind of a weird thing, but That's what they do. And if Google says you should do something, you have to do it. What kind of backlinks? Video backlinks. Things like just a slideshow on some of these video hosting sites like Vimeo. Use YouTube. YouTube's really important as far as videos go because guess who owns YouTube? Google. So that makes YouTube the second largest search engine in the world. So very important to be on there. Optimize your videos when you put them on there. Do they have to be super high quality produced videos? No. They can just be slideshows. Use services like Biteable or Powtoon. They're both really good video software editing tools, and you can create videos really, really quickly with them. So there's another software out there. You know how you little whiteboard videos where they have a hand that draws pictures and stuff like that? There's a software out there called Doodly. Makes it totally simple. So if you want to do those, you can get that. That's actually not an online service. You have to purchase it and put it on your computer. Audio backlinks. These are actually kind of neat. You can basically have somebody read a blog post and put it on audio backlink, and it's just another type of backlink that Google looks at and says, oh, we've got a video backlink, an audio backlink, we've got text backlinks, social bookmarking on sites like Reddit, where you can link back content from to your website that you post on there. You can comment on media feeds that are related to things like dental implants or Invisalign or whatever, and then link that back to your content. Social media post backlinks. There are lots of sites out there that have articles on dental care, and you can comment on them, and when you comment, you link back to your website. Use online tools to find out what the top 10 ranking sites are doing. Things like Quora, SEMrush, Bright Local, and then do that, right? Because these softwares can go and they can say, okay, here's what all of the top 10 ranking websites for that keyword search have in common, or at least there's a correlation of 98%. If that's the case, then just do that on your website. It might tell you, like for example, Quora will tell you, out of the top 10 websites for dental implants in your town, all of those websites use the word implant on their homepage 6 times, and you've only got 3. Well, what do you think you should do? Probably put some more content on the homepage that has 3 more instances of the word implant. Okay, and that doesn't mean you have to just write implant, implant, implant. It should be right. So use these tools. They're available. Some of them are expensive. Some of them are cheap, but they will make you a lot better at making your website work. Blogs. A blog is the current content that search engines like to see on your website, and everybody goes, "Oh, blogs. Oh, we don't like to do that." Here's a few rules. Make sure you host them on the same domain as your website. I see this all the time where people use like Blogspot or WordPress. Don't do that. That's not your website. That won't help you nearly as much as if it's a subdomain or just a page on your website. Update it regularly. Here's an idea. Use a team approach to posting. If you've got 8 people, posting once every 2 months means you have a blog post every week. Now, don't just let your team members go ahead and post because some of it's not going to be so great, right? But have them write stuff that's relevant to them. Here's the other thing we found is that, a hygienist would really like to talk to your patients about something that is important to them. So let them write about it. And then you can just edit it and put it up there. And they're going to be very pleased that they got something online. It gives them a little bit of recognition that they wrote something. Make sure they get the tagline for it. And so it's really good to help your team feel like they're involved in making sure that that stuff gets out there. And this is also content that you can post on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest if you're doing Pinterest. So we actually had a client in Halifax that started doing this team approach, and Canadian Living Magazine noticed it, and they did an article on them. They got so much more publicity out of the Canadian Living Magazine that it was well worthwhile. So it's actually was kind of a nice surprise for them. make sure you link back to your website from all the content. And most platforms like WordPress or Joomla or Drupal or whatever, you can post your content out in advance. So if you want all of your blog posts for the year, just get them all right away and post them out, and they will just automatically go out. Social media. This is a big topic for everybody because everybody says, well, social media, we've got to be really involved in social media. Here's my take on it. Don't expect, and when I say social media, I'm not talking about social media advertising, right? I'm just talking about organic posting on social media. Do not expect to get a lot of patients from it because social media is meant to be social. And unfortunately, a dental office is not a place where people like to be social. So will it help? Yes. It will give you some online credibility. It may get you some patients through referrals because of people that are fans of your pages sharing your stuff. That's true. Here's a statistic from Facebook that about when you post a regular organic blog or a Facebook post, only less than 1% of your followers are ever going to see it. That's because Facebook's algorithm is suppressing Facebook business page posts. So that's just the reality of it. And what they want you to do is they want you to advertise, right? They want to get your money, and they don't want you to get that for free. So I want to set that expectation because social media, while it is important and it is something that you definitely should do, please don't expect that you're going to get all your new patients that way. Advertising on social media is a different thing. Where do you start? Well, you can use services like Hootsuite to allow you to post in multiple places at once. However, Facebook doesn't like that anymore. It suppresses posts that are done by automated means like Hootsuite, and it will be very unlikely that your followers will see any of those posts. So I highly recommend not using that. I used to think it was a great idea. Don't use it anymore. Be consistent. Post as often as you can, and post the same things more than once. And people go, well, why would we do that? Wouldn't people start to get annoyed by that? No. When you realize that less than 1% are going to ever see any of your posts, it makes sense to post at a different time of day or a different day, right? Because then you increase the likelihood that somebody is going to see it. And here's the thing. If somebody's scrolling through and sees your post again, they just think Facebook screwed up anyway, right? Oh, let's see it again. Now, my wife says this all the time. Oh, did you see this? I'll go, yeah, that was on mine yesterday. Oh, Facebook screws up all the time, right? And it is. Nobody really knows why Facebook feeds things up like it does, so they don't care. They'll just scroll past it if it's something they don't want to look at. Time it right. And this will depend on your fans. Try different times and see which engagement is best. And you can go into the insights in your Facebook page and see what those are, right? And take a look at what posts get better engagement. So if I was to look at this, I would say, what did we do here? Let's do more of that, right? What time of day was that? Is it different than the other times of day? Take a look at those things and try and time it right. You can also see what time of day most of your fans are online. And most of our clients, actually, the time of day that most people are online is between 8 and 9 o'clock at night. So try some posts at that time of day. I see a lot of posts coming through during the day, and you know what? People are busy and they're doing stuff. Unless those people who are taking another break, right? Use eye-catching images, alternate photos and videos with text posts. In fact, I would not even recommend doing text posts anymore unless you add graphics because people will just scroll by them. However, if you do text posts, keep it short. Between 100 and 150 characters or 3 lines, see 60% more likes, comments, and shares. Be relevant. Your content should show that you know who they are. So don't start posting stuff that is just, kind of off of what you think that they are. Use your authentic voice. What I mean by that is people know who you are. Don't start posting things that are kind of, just because you think I need to be this other type of clinic, right? Make sure that it paints a picture of who you are, because it is social. Remember, it's supposed to be a conversation between you and your patients. And typically, most of these are going to be your patients. Do things like this. You'll recognize this, Carlo. This was when you guys were doing, I think you were calling it mugging, where you take the T-shirts and give it to local businesses. Donut days, that's what it was, yeah. So I guess, yeah, it was another client that used it, called it mugging. They actually showed up with a mug and a T-shirt shoved into it, and they were mugging you. And they didn't, it was a great thing. But here's the thing, put these people on and tag them, right? Find out what their names are when you're gonna, do you mind if I put your picture on Facebook? Oh, what's your name? Okay, boom. And you can tag them. Well, guess what? Their friends now get to see this, right? So it's a way for you to put content on there that's gonna get shared around. Patient of the day, I thought this was a really good idea, right? Now, here's something with this, with your patient intake forms, you should have a release on those patient intake forms allowing you to use pictures and videos and comments from those people at any time that you want to, so you do not have to do it when you've got a picture and you're going, oh God, I got a great picture, but I can't put it up because they haven't signed a release yet, right? So put that right on your intake form, and then you can use however you want. Include a call to action. If you ask your fans to share, like, or comment, they're more likely to do so. Have a sense of urgency. So, have up-to-the-minute things, tips and tricks. Dispel myths. You can give them information about dental care, but try not to do too much dental-related stuff. Because, again, it is social, and people don't really feel social about dental stuff. So you have to have other things mixed in there to keep them interested. Offer value. This is probably the most important thing I can tell you. Before you share something on Facebook, ask yourself if you think your fans will find value. If they won't find value in it, they're not going to share it. So if it's something that you wouldn't do anything with, your fans probably aren't going to either. Be entertaining. People like to share funny things, videos, stuff like that. Things like this always get shared quite a bit. Does it get you a lot of new patients? No. But you know what? Here's the thing. You can take this and you'll see that this gets more engagement than pretty much anything else you put on there, because everybody goes, hey, I want to share this. I want to share this. This was really cute. Like, and everybody gets to see it, right? Make lists, top 10 ways, 12 can't miss tips, those types of things. Be seasonable. This was another thing that I got from the Northern Dental Care site. This might have been appropriate this year. This is a program actually that we started back, it's probably at least 10 years ago now for a client of ours in Manitoba. It's called Brush to Win. And it's a really good way to get into schools. So basically what it is you set up a time that you can go in and present to a school, and you teach either the entire school or certain classes how to brush and floss properly. And now you give them a little package to take home, and every day they mark on their little calendar that you've given them that has your contact information and logo on it, that's stuck on their bathroom mirror that their parents see every day. They mark on there every morning and every night that they have brushed and flossed. At the end of that month, everybody brings them back, and those go into draw for prizes. And in this case, I think it was piggy banks full of loonies or something like that. You can do pizza parties for the top class, per capita, all kinds of things. Really, really effective. Some schools with this client we started with have been doing this for 8 or 9 years running. So great opportunity to have pictures. And guess what? When you post pictures of kids, what do their parents do? They share it, right? So really good opportunity there. Things like this, Elf on the Shelf. You can do little theme things like this that give you lots of content that you can do on a regular basis through a certain amount of time, and everybody's like, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow, right? So I thought this was good. Little Smiles Day, I think is I know, Carlo, you guys promote that a lot. I think it's a great opportunity to take pictures and get those on the websites. Whenever something unique happens, this is one of our clients in Thunder Bay who actually had a patient bring them a goldfish or a beta fish, I think. And they were like, well, what should we name them? Oh, guess what? Let's put that out on Facebook and Instagram and see if we can have our patients name them. Guess what? Highest engaged post that they've ever posted on Facebook. Here's another thing to do. Recognize people in your office. This is just some of their receptionists they wanted to recognize and posted a picture. Very, very high engagement on this post. So, and here's part of the reason, all the staff share it. So that when you share something dental related, nobody even looks at it, right? You got this great post on dental implants and your staff ignores it. But if they get to share about their friends that work with them, they'll share it, and that gets shared, and so on. Anything that you can do with charities or giving things away, get yourself a big check and take pictures, right? This got an extreme amount of engagement. It was probably 5 times as much as any other post on his Facebook page. And you know what it was? It was really just this kid who was raising money for a scholarship or something. I can't even remember now. And he was going to give him the money anyway. I said, well, why don't you get a big check and make a deal out of this? And you know what? Everybody thought it was great. And now he looks like a really good guy in the community, right? Draws. Draws are a really good way to get engagement and force people to do stuff to, like here, like, share, and tag 2 people for your chance to win a set of his and her Sonicare electric toothbrushes. You can do all kinds of things with this. I have found that big screen TVs are probably one of the best things, and they're nice and cheap at Costco. So here's another one. This client does something called Throwback Thursdays, and the only thing we throw back on this Thursday is a cupcake, right? And they're actually, I thought this was kind of weird. They have, looks like dentures on there, but it's teeth. So all kinds of things you can do. Be creative, be funny, be real. Pictures of staff and patients always get more engagement than generic stuff that gets posted about dental work. When you're posting on social media, do not forget Google My Business and Bing. There's a word in the front of this that means it's really important. Google, right? So make sure that you're posting on your Google My Business page. Very, very important. If you don't have content going on there regularly, you're not going to get as much juice out of it. Load as many photos as you can from a cell phone. Why would that be? Because cell phones have GPSs in them and they geotag all the photos. And so that means every picture on your Google My Business page now has a GPS coordinate on it, and Google picks those up, and that helps you get ranked in the map pack. So taking pictures with a cell phone is better than a camera. Strange, I know. Thank God we got good cell phones now. Regular posts on Google My Business shows in search results. So you can post something like this with a call to action, and that will show up on your Google My Business page on the side. And it's a good way to get people to take a next step. Chatbots. Well, these are kind of a new thing. Has anybody ever done anything with a chatbot? So a chatbot really uses Facebook Messenger, and it's a way to communicate with your patients without any human interaction, which is kind of nice, actually. You can use ads to drive people to chatbots. You can use organic posts. You can also use have a chat function on your website and use this to engage that way. It's basically an automated response system that takes prospective patients through common questions and answers just like a live person would. Excuse me. So it might pop up like this. How can we help you today? Schedule an appointment, our services, meet our dentist. So more options, hours and location. So I chose schedule, or actually I don't know what I chose here. I think it was our services. So things like cleaning and exam, you can put a description in there, cavities. So I hit contact us. We're located, and then you put your address here. We're open Monday through Friday. What else do you want to know? Oh, schedule an appointment. What's the reason for your appointment? Scroll to the right to see. So you can scroll and they can choose. So this is all happening automated, right? Reason for the appointment. I want a cleaning exam. Got it, Trent. Now guess what? It pulled that right out of my Facebook page. I didn't have to type that in. It knows that because this is using Facebook Messenger. Now I need just need to get your contact info. What's the best phone number? So I put that in. Thanks. Can you verify your email? It already knew that that was the email address I had on my Facebook page. Right? Excellent. I've forwarded this information to the office to schedule your appointment. Bam. Now it's gone to the office, and somebody from the office should pick up the phone and call. So kind of a neat way to do that. Right now, it is completely free on Facebook to use this. This is actually a system we use called Mobile Monkey that ties in with Facebook. You can set it up on Facebook. It's a lot more difficult to do. But highly recommend doing something like that because it's a way that you can engage with people right on your website. Reviews. Reviews are super important. They are the new word of mouth. If you're not getting reviews, you should be. And again, things like, excuse me, Bright Local will help you track your reviews. So it's really easy in this case. I ran this client through there and I said, what do you think we should focus on? Well, first off, we need to get some Yelp reviews, right? Because they only had one and it was a bad one. Actually, this says 2, but it wasn't showing one. A little word of advice on reviews. Both Google and Yelp will hide reviews if they think that they're spammy. What I mean by that is if you send out, let's say, an email newsletter to your patients and say, hey, we need reviews. Can everybody click this link and go give us a Google review? And you have 35, 40 people go do that day, most of those will get hidden by Google and Yelp just because they think, somebody's asked them for this and they all come at once. If a person has never given a Yelp review or a Google review before, don't ask them to give one to you today. Tell them go give a review of their favorite restaurant and then in a couple days do you, because that will help their review show up for you. Right? First reviews a lot of times are suppressed because they're afraid that that person just went there to give a review for that business. Right? And don't have them give reviews from a computer in your office because they track the IP address. And if you get more reviews, too many reviews from the same IP address, again, those all get blocked. So just a couple things. So Bright Local says, okay, these are the things we need to focus on. I would say, okay, well, we don't have enough Google reviews, but we definitely need a few more Facebook reviews, and we need to fix this. Foursquare, there was no listing found. We should probably go get a listing and put a few on there. And it will actually list a whole bunch of places you can get reviews, but those are the top ones. Automated systems like Birdeye, for example, work. They cost more. But if you want some sort of an automated system, we found that it's probably the best for the price. I think it runs around $200 and some. But here, I'll just give you an idea. So this is a client who was asking for reviews, and started using Birdeye. So you can see that it went up pretty quickly. And there are lots of other ones out there. That's just the one that I'm familiar with. Again, Bright Local gives you this kind of information. Other than that, one of the things we've done for clients with their websites is set up a review system like this. So basically, there's a form on your website that your staff goes to, puts the name and the email address of the patient that they would like to give a review. It sends them an email. The email shows up, they click a button, and they land on this page. Were you completely satisfied with the service you received at XYZ Dental Center today? Yes. They go to this page, and they give a review. They pick whatever they want to do. We even give them instructions on how to give a review on Google. If they click no, they go to a page that looks like this, and it just says, your feedback is important to us. Please let us know what we could have done better so we can improve. And what that does is it sorts the positive and the negative people so that the negative people don't show up on Google and give all of their information there, right? They're telling you their voice is being heard. And absolutely, when you get this email, respond to it quickly. Make sure that you figure those people out. Now, in saying all this, none of that works if you guys are not asking for reviews. Here's what we found. As soon as the dentists and the staff start asking for reviews, the reviews go up. Even if you have an automated system, it will multiply the amount of reviews you get substantially. Here's what I mean. Before somebody leaves, and here's why people don't do it. They're busy, and they are afraid of the answer they're going to get when they ask this question. Was everything satisfactory today? Was it everything you expected and more? And if they say no, you're afraid of that, right? But don't be. Ask that question, because this is the opportunity for you to either address an issue, or if they say, yeah, it was awesome. We really, this is a great dental office. You know what? We're a small business, and reviews are super important to us. Would you mind putting that on Google or Facebook? And they have to say yes, or they can say no. They typically don't. Now they've just made a promise to you. And you say, okay, great. You're going to be getting an email. We'll make it really easy for you. You're going to be getting an email. I'll have one of my staff send the email to you today. When that comes, all you have to do is click on there, and then it'll just walk you through it. Does that sound okay? Yes, absolutely. So now they're expecting it. Step 2, give them a sheet of paper that asks for the review and tells them how to do it. And they go out and they put that on the seat of their car, and they totally forget about giving you a review. They're done, they're going to the grocery store, they're going to pick up the kids, whatever it is they're doing, they will not think about that again until they get out of your car, or their car. Oh, yes, I promised I was going to give a review. So anything you can do to remind them, doing those 2 things will probably double the amount of reviews you get out of a system like this. And it will also double them out of something like Bird Eye. So it's important to ask. Now here's the other opportunity you have. If they say, well, yeah, you know, it wasn't all that great, now you can address it before they even leave, which is a really important thing to do. If you're not addressing those types of things, you're not improving. And the patient experience is huge because that's what causes a turnover, right? Lots of people are silently leaving knowing they're never going to come back again. And if you can talk to them before they leave, you can solve that problem. Internet marketing, Google Ads, pay-per-click. So for those of you who don't know what they are, the ads that show up here and the ads that show up here are Google pay-per-click ads. I think there's 4 ads show up here now most times. Google used to make them in yellow. They used to have them down the side. They used to make them really obvious, and they're making them a little more subtle now. So they're actually a very important part of it, and they've added this local, so you can show up in the map pack. Again, reviews are important for this because if you're here and you have no reviews, you're not going to get clicked on if you're paying for ads. Facebook, pay-per-click, same type of deal. So this is what I'm talking about. So it's a great place to test messaging. Excuse me. So if you're thinking of doing something like direct mail or radio or any of those offline type of advertising, online ads is a really good place to test that message. If you put something out and you don't get any response online, it's very likely you're probably not going to get a response to that message offline. And it's a lot cheaper to do it here than spending $10,000 on a direct mailer and you get no calls, right? Use the results formula there as well. Have pictures and headlines that interrupt people and stop them. Because remember, back here, whoops, you're competing in here, right? So you should have interrupt in this part of your ads as well. If you're not doing that, your competitors are going to get those clicks. Same with that. If you don't have pictures that stop people, you're not going to get the clicks. Use the results formula and monitor it. Set it and forget it, it'll cost you more. We also use a service called WordStream. WordStream is one of those tools that makes life a whole lot easier if you're going to do Google advertising, or Facebook for that matter. But what it does is it takes everything and kind of analyzes it in a way that you don't always get from Facebook and Google. Gives you stuff like this. Like, for example, you can say your average cost per click is $1.30. And that's 43.9% less than your average competitor. So good, you want to do that, right? Because you're obviously optimizing your ads for Google. Your average click-through rate is 9.76%. Oh, that's pretty good too. Well, is it? It's 87.5% higher than your average competitor. Ah, you know you're doing good. Now, if this said this was 2% and that it's 62% lower than your average competitor, it tells you what you should do. You should go and fix your ads so you get a higher click-through rate. Quality score, this is kind of a wonky thing that Google does. It gives you a quality score on your ads. And the higher your quality score, the lower you're going to pay for your clicks. And in this case, it was a good deal. So it'll tell you, it'll actually say, action item if you need to go and fix this. So it gives you some really interesting things. There's all kinds of reports you get, but this is one of them. It also tells you what your cost per acquisition is. So for example, this one here, there was 13 conversions from this campaign. A conversion would be a measurement of when somebody landed on a certain page, and that would be the only way they could ever get to that page is if they filled out maybe an appointment request form, for example. So that measures it. It's got its own tracking system and everything in it, so it actually works really, really well to be able to track those. So you can look at this and go, okay, every appointment request we got cost us $35.90. Is that worth it? Well, we probably closed 80% of all new patient calls. Absolutely, it's worth it. right? Because if you don't know what you're spending, and you can see here, this is how it should go. Start off here, optimize your campaigns, and keep your cost per acquisition dropping all the time. And if you're not able to do that, and this is a tool that gives you that kind of information. Unique landing pages. I already talked about this, but it's very important to use unique landing pages for your ads. Don't send everybody just to your home page. It just doesn't work. People will get lost and they'll leave, and that's called a bounce on Google Analytics. Use ad extensions to take up as much space as possible. So you can see here how much more space this ad takes up. These are called ad extensions. Watch for terms that you're actually found for. So Google AdWords has this, one of the areas that you can click on it, and it will show you the exact words that people typed in to find your website, and before they clicked on your ads. And some of them are like weird. You think, oh, that's weird. But these are some things. I actually think I took this from the Northern Dental Care. But like this, ankle braces kids. Well, if you're doing a campaign for braces, you paid money for that click, right? But this is not somebody that you want. So why would you pay for that click? So it's really important to check off these. And by doing this, if somebody ever searches ankle braces for kids, you set it as a negative keyword. Now, if that search comes up again, you will not show up in that search because you don't want that click. Because you've got X number of dollars you want to spend. You want to maximize the dollars of those clicks that make sure that they're people who are actually a potential customer, right? Internet marketing, so targeting audiences on Facebook. Carlo already talked about this, lookalike audiences to your current Facebook fans. Your competitors' pages, you can get that information. So if you have a competitor that you know is just rocking it on dental implants or Invisalign and you want to know what they're doing, you can target their page. Other interests for your typical patient, you can target those types of things, and Facebook gives you all that info. Boosting posts. About 5% of your ad budget should go here. Facebook does like it if you boost posts, but if you spend all of your ad budget there, they'll actually won't show those boosted posts nearly as much as if you just spend a small amount of it. So it's boosting posts is sort of the beginner's part of Facebook advertising. What you should do though is if you're thinking of boosting a post, don't boost a post that isn't getting any engagement already. Boost a post that you're already getting engagement with your current fan base. Because a dead organic post is going to be dead if you boost it too, right? Because it's just not getting engagement. So think about it that way. Your ads manager ads should be about 95% of your budget. When talking about ad budget, the one thing that I would recommend is don't skimp too much when you're starting your ad budget, because Facebook goes through a learning phase, and if you don't have enough to start with, it's going to take a lot longer to learn, and so because it learns by the number of impressions and the number of clicks, and if your budget gets used up too quickly, that takes weeks instead of days. So I would actually recommend starting with a little higher budget on a campaign and then cutting it back once it's through the learning phase, because then at least you're being a little more efficient. And I know if Carlo's going to be managing the ads for you, most of you are not going to be doing this, but I will recommend that if you do your own Facebook ads, don't go in and change things a lot. And if you do change things, start a new ad campaign, because it's going to screw up your numbers. And when you go back in and look at them, you're going to go, oh, something's really weird here, right? Because you changed too much. Now you can change budget and stuff like that. That's okay. But if you go in and make a major change to the ad, it's better to start a new campaign. And that's really easy. You can just duplicate campaigns and then make the change and go. Retargeting. So if you're going to do any online advertising, retargeting is super important. This is actually Inc.com, and I went on there, and guess what it fed me up? MailChimp. I was actually doing some research on MailChimp just before that, like a couple days ago. What retargeting is how Google and Facebook can feed ads up to you based on your activity in previous days, previous searches, page visits, all of those types of things. Remember I said earlier about 80% of the people who go to your website don't do anything on the first visit? Well, you know what's going to happen is down the road, a week down the road, a month down the road, whatever it is, when they have the chance to look at this again, they're going to do another Google search, and what if your competitor comes up? They forgot about you. Well, you just lost, right? Because they're going to go to your competitor, and they're going to pick up the phone and call them. But if you follow them around the internet for the next 3 weeks, guess who they're going to think of? Oh yeah, I was going to call that dentist. Click, and they go to your page again. And now they're there for the second time or the third time, and they get to see you again, and they will take action. So retargeting is really important. You can do that both with Facebook and Google. And you can retarget with Facebook ads as well. So you can set up a pixel on your, now pixel is just the word for Facebook's tracking code. You can set up a pixel on your website. So for example, if you have a pixel set up on your implants page, now you can follow them around the internet with implants ads. So whenever they're looking at their Facebook, they'll get your implant ads. Very, very important to do that because those are warm people. They've been there before, and they're gonna take action again. You can base it on website visits, people who clicked on your ad before. Anywhere that you can put that pixel, you can track those people and follow them around. However, you must have at least 1,000 people who have visited that page or done that action before you can do anything. Google will not do, or Facebook won't do anything until at least 1,000 people have done that. And then they'll start retargeting. So what I recommend to people is do a Google AdWords campaign that's a search campaign that drives people to whatever page it is. And once you get 1,000, then set up a retargeting campaign. And then you can start retargeting those people. Track everything. Google Analytics is free. If you're not using it, you're crazy. There's so much information in Google Analytics that, that is super important for people to use. And when you look at your traffic, like for example in this case, and I don't remember whose site this is, but they had a 46% increase. Well, that sounds great, but why? I want to know why. So you can dig in and you can find out that information. There's a spike here. What happened here? Did we do an ad campaign there? And in this case, we actually did. That was something that we had released just at that time, and boom, their website traffic went up that day. So I can tell them for sure that it created some activity here. Bounce rate, I will tell you, bounce rate will go up the more you advertise online because there are a lot of people who are just professional clickers. And they just click and it's like, I don't know why I did that, but I feel stupid now, so I'm gone. So don't be surprised if you see the bounce rate go up. What a bounce rate is when somebody goes to your website and doesn't stay there and leaves. It's just like there and gone, right? So don't be surprised if it goes up. If your bounce rate starts to get up in the 68 to 75% range, then there's something wrong with your website. Or your ads are not targeted to the right people, one of the two. But you can dig in and find out what that is too. Well, actually, the other thing to do is use targeted URLs. Google's got a really neat campaign URL builder where it's free. You just go in and you put in the website URL that you want it to land on. You put in the campaign. You can put in the medium. So for this one here, we knew that it was the Everything GP publication. It was a display campaign on their website, and it was the Whitening for Life campaign, and it was ad number 1. All of that gets into the URL, and now you can redirect that, and Google will pick that up. And when you look in your analytics report, you can say, oh, we got X number of clicks, not just from, if you're running 3 campaigns with Everything GP, you can tell exactly which ad got the clicks through that. So it's very important to use this. It's free. Just type in campaign URL builder in Google and it'll come up. It's really easy to use. Use specific URLs. Either you can use stuff like that, or you can use subdomains, which would be, implants dot whatever your website is. And those are really simple to set up too. You can track all of that. This is the place where you can find out, this is in Google Analytics. You can find out what your bounce rate, for example, is from Google Organic. So this actually tells a story here. No, this one actually doesn't have a pay-per-click on it. But you can see here that direct traffic actually bounces more than Google organic traffic. But the people who have searched for something specific on Google and found you organically, been good. If I was to put the Google pay-per-click ads in here, the bounce rate on those would probably be around 77, 78%. That's just the way it is with Google Ads. But you can see here, this is mobile Facebook visitors. The amount of information you can get from Google Analytics is unbelievable. You can tell how many people come to your website from a mobile device. You can tell what browsers they're using. And that's actually really important because if, for example, 70% of your visitors are coming from a mobile device, and you go and look on that type of mobile device and your website is kind of screwed up, you probably should fix it, right? It's pretty important to design that way. Call tracking numbers, really important. A lot of you guys will recognize this. It's important to make sure that you track everything that you possibly can. Again, because if you're not doing it this way, you're going to be spending money on stuff that you will not know whether those have produced any results at all. Plus, this is a great way to find out how your receptionists are doing, listening to them. One of the other things that is really neat with this system is you can use dynamically switched numbers. So if somebody comes to you from a Google paid ad, it'll change the number on your website so that those people find a different number, and when they call it, you know that that came from a Google paid ad. Or Facebook, or Bing, or wherever it is. You can have as many numbers as you want. And this is part of the system here too, where it's kind of nice to know that in this case, there are 12 new patient calls in this time period, and 2 of them were not booked, so you got about an 80% close rate. So that would mean if you increase the amount of traffic and increase the amount of calls, you know that you're probably still going to have about an 80% close rate. These 2 calls here, I would go and listen to those. Say, why didn't they close, right? And you can do that here by just looking under the score. The score will be marked with new patient not closed or something, not booked, I think is how it is. And this information is just critical in making decisions. I mean, you just can't make these kind of decisions without that kind of data, right? Patient newsletters. These are extremely important. These are not the printed newsletters that you would send out to the general community, but this is an email newsletter that you should send out to your patient base. Keep the information info educational, use contest draws and updates to keep your patients engaged, communicate upcoming events, new services and equipment. This is a big one. I can't tell you how many times I've heard a dentist say that, you know, I had a patient that went somewhere else because they had this new fancy whatever, and I have that. Well, why didn't your patients know about it, right? If you get a new CEREC machine or a new laser treatment option for periodontal disease or whatever it is, tell your patients about it, because that just reinforces the reason that they come to you, and it'll keep them from going to your competitors. Ask for referrals. Important. They would love to give you referrals, but they just don't think about it. So ask them, you know. And give thank yous for referrals too, by the way. That really works. In most markets, you can't incent people to give referrals. If you can do that, that's okay. Let people know about it. We worked with one client in Texas who actually gave away a car. It was brilliant. He bought a Tesla, and he drove it for 18 months, wrote it off, and then gave it away to a patient that out of a drop-in of referrals. He had patients telling people, man, you should come to my dentist. He's giving away his Tesla. What? Yeah, all we got to do is refer people. So if you come, I get into the draw, and then you can do the same thing. He made out really good. And then he said, I got to buy a new car every 18 months. If you do not have emails for your patients, and I imagine most of you do, but if you don't, you should. I hear this all the time. You know, I have a lot of patients who don't have emails. BS. They all have emails. Even the oldest ones have emails because they are getting on Facebook to see their grandkids' pictures and all of those things, right? In fact, the fastest growing group of Facebook users are senior citizens. So make sure that you get emails. If you don't, we have something we developed called the email capture letter. It works really, really well. It's basically a mailed letter that you send out to your patients saying, hey, we're having a little bit of a contest. We are giving away, 3 $250 Visa gift cards and a free teeth whitening and whatever. And we've already drawn the winners. And we've assigned these numbers to all of you. Just go to the website and check to see if you've won. When they get to the website, they have to put in their email address to check the numbers. Now you got their email address. It works a lot better to do it that way than to say go to the website and enter, because people have what's called FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. They don't want to miss out, and they may have won, right? I've got a number, and the lottery system has given us this, right? You know, I have a number, it may have won, I better go check. So it's a lot more effective. You'll probably get somewhere around 40% opt-in rate on that. Brochures. If you have a great office, don't skimp on your brochure, because it is something that your patients will use to refer to you. Here's an example of an office that we work with in Calgary. You know, they have a beautiful office. Why not flaunt it, right? These guys were actually, they have a canoe hanging in their front office that the dentist actually built. But it's quite an office. I think they've got 5 massage chairs. They've got an espresso bar off to the side, and it's really good. 19 operatories. Events. Events are something that I recommend that you do for patients, but also this is sort of an external thing, and your Little Smiles days are part of that. Open houses, kids' days, Little Smile, family day, pictures with Santa. The very first time we did this, I thought, no freaking way is this going to work, but the dentist wanted to do it, so let's do it. We had over 1,700 people walk through his office that Saturday morning, and I thought, no way. We did things like this is Harvey the Hound, the Calgary Flames mascot. So we just advertised that he was going to be there, pictures with Harvey. So if you got a local celebrity, it doesn't cost much. I think it was $300 to have Harvey there for the whole day, or for the whole time. We had a lineup. They were in a shopping mall. We had a lineup down the mall and out the door. I just boggled my mind. Pictures with Santa, you know. And when they got the picture, guess what? It had the logo of the office on it. Signs. These are really important because this helps educate your patients on things that you have that they may not know about. So very important to have that in your office. Things like this, you know, how would you look if you fix that chipped tooth? And again, this uses the results formula, right? Interrupt, engage, educate, and offer. They need to know that they can take the next step. You know, ask at the front desk or go to the website and have a look. It's also good for external marketing. If you've got lots of windows that point out towards the public, don't just leave them empty. They should have stuff in them that tells people that it's actually a dental office. This office, for example, we had an issue where they had a huge office, but the way that they had painted the building, it looked like, because their door is down here somewhere, it looked like it was this little wee office, right? So we just did all the windows. This is perforated vinyl. You can see out, it's I think 70-30 perf. So from inside, you can't even tell there's stuff on the windows, but outside it looks like this. They got a lot more walk-in traffic after putting this up. Here's another one. It's kind of hard to see, but again, if you've got windows out into your parking lot, they should have stuff on them. If you've got an ugly building, consider doing something about it. It makes a big difference when people are looking at it, when they're driving by. You know, this looks like a place I don't want to go, and this looks like a place that maybe I would like to. Now, they didn't do all of that, but they made quite a few changes, and it looks it's a huge improvement. Excuse me. So let's just recap this. You should have a strategic plan and a tactical plan. If you're going to put together any kind of marketing, excuse me. So start off, have something good to say, and say it well. This is your strategy. And please work on this first, because if you start spending money on that and you don't have these two things, you're going to waste money. And you have a revolving door, and that's frustrating because it's never fun to see patients going out as fast as they're coming in. Okay? So work on this first. And I know Carlo's team is doing a lot of stuff to help you out with that. Then get your website right. If it's not right, people are going to arrive there from your marketing, regardless of what kind of marketing you're doing, and they're going to say, oh, this isn't as nice as the guy down the street. If you have a gorgeous office, take pictures of it and put it all over your website. It's important to do that because people want to know, what does it look like, right? The more you can engage them in what they're going to experience when they show up there, the more that they're going to feel comfortable showing up there. Videos. Highly recommend having videos on there that have the dentists talking. Now, this works really, really well to have a walkthrough of your office and have the dentist talking in the background. So don't just have a talking head. That doesn't work because people don't want to just see somebody sitting there talking away. But have the dentist talking, and at the same time you can be doing a tour of the office with some B-roll. It works very, very well to help them know who the dentist is and at the same time get to see the inside of your office. So it's really nice to do that. You can put it on YouTube and you can tag those videos and have them show up in search and link that back to your website. Both your internal and external. Now, I put internal here again because I think it's one of those things that people forget about. You have a large group of fans, raving fans, people who love you. And they could be the biggest source of referrals, but you just need to ask for them. You need to say, hey, if you like me, could you please tell people about me? And a lot of times they will. They just need you to ask. And I know everybody's like, well, I'm afraid to do that because I know they're busy, they don't want to do it, but do it. It's important to do that. Anything that you want them to do, ask them to do because they won't just do it. Most won't. Then reward them for doing what you ask them to do. And then say it often. This is also really important. I want to reiterate it. Facebook is really good for this, to be able to get frequency where people can, people can see your ad over and over and over again. And you guys will see it more than anybody else, and you'll just be like, oh my God, we're still running that ad? That's okay. People need to have that frequency, right? It needs to get in their face over and over and over again. An example of that, actually that client that has the big waiting area there, we did a big radio campaign for them for a number of years. And we ran a set of ads that had the dentist talking. And he hated them because every time he heard them, he had to hear himself, right? He hated them. They were great ads. They worked really well, but he kept saying, oh, we got to change those ads. We got to take them down. He actually even said, in fact, he called me one night. He said, how soon can we get those changed? He said, I was just playing hockey with my buddies and they're razzing me about this ad. I said, but it works. He said, no, we want to change it. So we did. We changed it to a generic ad that was just an announcer. And you know what? Calls went down. So just because you are tired of something doesn't mean that the public is tired of it. So if you've got a website that's converting, don't go making changes just because you feel, oh, you know what? I'm tired of this. I got to make a change. No, most of your prospects, that's the first time they've ever seen your website, right? So don't base everything on exactly what you think. When you write ads or when you have ads done for you, when you see Facebook ads or when you see Google ads, don't think about them from your point of view. Think about them, how is your prospect going to view this? Because they think differently than you. You're not looking for a new dentist. They are, right? So you have to put yourself in that mindset. So don't make decisions based on that. I have this happen all the time. We'll do a concept up and the dentist or the office manager will say, I'm going to show it around the office and see what everybody thinks. That's okay, but if everybody thinks it's not going to work because they wouldn't respond to it, that's not a reason to not use it. Show your patients, that's different. Start to show some other people, but just because people in a dental office don't think that they would respond to an ad like that doesn't mean it won't work. And if you use the formula that I talked to you guys about with the interrupt and engage, educate and offer, if you do it over and over again, it's going to work. You'll have to learn a little bit. It takes a lot of practice. I've been doing it for 17 years, so it takes a bit. But once you start to understand how that works, if you write something and you can you take everything else away but the headline, if that headline doesn't stop you, then you need to change it. If you take everything else away but the picture and the picture doesn't stop you, you need to change it. So there's ways that you can work with it really quickly. So Once you have your website, once you've got your external marketing set up to run, make sure you track. Track. Make sure you know those numbers. If you don't understand those numbers, find somebody who can interpret them for you and tell you what's going on, because it's super important. Because sometimes there are numbers that you'll look at and you go, oh, I think this, but that's not at all what's happening, right? It's important that you understand exactly what's going on. So really important that you know that. Test. So once you have something that you know is working, you might think, oh, well, this is working extremely well. I don't want to change it, but you know what? It could be working just a little bit better. So change something. Change the picture. Change the headline. Change the call to action. Change one thing, okay? And that's really important. I've seen this happen all the time where you'll change everything, and then you go, oh, well, that's working too. But you don't know exactly what it is that's making it work, right? If you change one thing, you would know, oh, we got a little incremental increase in that. That worked out really well. Or it went down a little bit. Okay, well, we go back to the first headline again. Let's change the picture. And you just keep testing until you get the best that you possibly can, and then you just spend money on that. Here's my theory. If you're spending $1 and you're getting $2 back, you should spend as many dollars as you have, right? Until you stop getting $2 back for every dollar. Marketing is not an expense. It's an investment. I don't know if you guys, anybody knows who Peter Drucker is. He was the guy who started Success Magazine. He said there are really only two things in business, marketing and innovation. Everything else is an expense. So those are the only two things that grow your business. So innovate, so do this, and then market it. Okay? So to wrap up, your system can include all of these things. But if you don't have them work together as a system, then they're probably not going to work as good as they can. I will tell you too, the more of these things you do, the better everything is going to work. So if you're doing getting reviews and you're doing SEO and pay-per-click, it's going to make your social media work better. If you're doing more social media and you're doing, I don't know, direct mail, that's going to work better together. If you do radio and direct mail together, those will work better than if you just did direct mail or you just did radio. So it's one of those things where you actually gain exponentially every time you add one marketing medium. Don't change things up. If you're doing things on social media and direct mail, don't do a different campaign for radio or TV. Do the same thing. So it's consistent, right? Your signage also outside your building. It should have, if you send out a direct mail postcard and you have the opportunity to put up a sign outside that matches that, like that postcard that I showed you that was for spring cleaning, that client has that everywhere. Our Facebook ads, their social media, postcards, there's a sign outside their building, there's a sign inside their building, it's everywhere, right? And so it doesn't matter what you're doing, if you're in their town, you know that that's the promotion that they're doing, right? So here's what I'm going to offer everybody here is a free website audit and a 1-hour consultation after we get that audit done so that I can walk you through exactly what that audit means. And if you want to take that to your web people and tell them, hey, this is what you need to do, fine. If you want to ask us to do it, that's fine too. The other thing is 20% off of our setup fee for all attendees here. So our website has got all of our setup fees, so you can go and have a look at those. I will tell you too, there's 2 different pricing there. So if you're Canadian, click on the Canadian pricing. If you're American, click on the US price. Then nobody has to do any calculations. I would like it if they were both the same, but unfortunately not. Any questions? Told you I was going to go through lots of stuff. You guys are quiet. I must have answered all the questions perfectly. Awesome. Well, you guys have been really great. Carlo, I don't know if you have anything you want to talk to him about before lunch, but I'm done.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Trent. That was great. Yeah. So I told you you'd fill in all the gaps of everything you wanted to know about Google and everything online, right? So now you can see how this plays together with what we're doing, and adding, someone in Trent's capacity really just kind of rounds it out. So This is the guy I've been talking about, by the way. If I keep saying you should just talk to Trent, so now you know exactly what the deal is. No questions at all? We have about 10 minutes before lunch. We can do a quick Q&A about anything we've done over the weekend so far. Yeah.
You didn't really talk much about TV. Do you find value in the TV?
Yes. However, TV is expensive if you do it wrong. Here's where we found that in some markets, and I'll be cautious about that, and again, you'll have to test, is local cable channels, especially if you're advertising something that's for an older population. Because they tend to sit and watch stuff forever that just goes by, right? So implant retained dentures, big thing that you can do on local cable channels. The other thing that works really well is around special events in your area. If you can get tied in with some of those events and go on local channels, that works really well as well. For example, when the Flames were in the playoffs just recently, very short, but they were there, a couple of things we would never do with a client is go on the sports channel, the radio channel, and on the local TV channel. But we did because we knew that there was a really high population that was going to be responding because of that event, right? And so we just built it around the Flames games. So those are the times when I would use TV. I don't think I would use TV all by itself. Part of the problem with TV is there's so many choices, right? So whatever channel you pick. Now, here's the other thing with TV. If you're going to work with TV, get all your local channels and ask them, who watches your channel? How old are they? Are they male or female? How many of them are there in any given day that watch your channel? What times of day do they watch? Because they have that information. They might not want to tell you that, but they have it. And compare it. And you can say, okay, well, how much is it going to cost me per impression on this station compared to that station? And if I'm looking at this station and their demographic is, age 25 to 40, and I'm trying to market to an older demographic, then I don't want to go there. So all of those things it will work, but you just need to know the information first. Yes?
When you set up a campaign for different areas, how long does it usually take, like if you've got total control, until you see the traction and the return from that campaign?
By campaign, what are you meaning, like an online campaign or?
Website, you're trying to saturate the market and be the expert and your name's everywhere. So what kind of time frame do you usually see that, and you do that kind of like, here, I'll go figure out that radio might be the best, or let's do direct, and that's what you do?
Yeah, so if you want to really hit a market hard, you're probably looking, if your website is ready already, because that takes time first. Once you start, you're going to get immediate results from online ads, because some people are looking for a dentist, they're going to click and call you, right? But to really get stuff rocking and rolling, you're 3 to 4 months. Yeah, because people need frequency, right? So, and people want to see or need to see your ad at least 3 times. Here's how their brain works. Direct mail is a very good example of this. Your postcard shows up in the mail, and they see it and they go, oh yeah, that looks like an interesting dentist. We need a new dentist. I should put this somewhere. Forget about it, right? And they walk away. And they don't think about it again until the next month when your postcard shows up again. Oh yeah, I was going to give them a call. I want to put this somewhere that's, maybe I can find it again. So I'm going to put it up here. And then all the recycling gets put on top of it and they never see it again. So the third time, 3 months in, they get your postcard again and they go, oh, yeah, okay, I'm going to call them right now. So the brain, that's how people's brains work. And it might be the third time, it might be the fourth time. It depends. And the dental industry has a long buying cycle, right? Because people don't go every day. Starbucks has a short buying cycle. A dental office is 6 to 9 months, depending on how often people go to get their teeth cleaned. So you have to look at that cycle as well. Because you might hit somebody today that they just got back from a dental experience they didn't like. They're not going to call you tomorrow. They're going to let that sit for a while, and in a month or so, they might start thinking about it, right? So yeah, 3 months is sort of a ballpark, but it really depends. Now you're in Toronto? You got lots of competition? Yeah, add a couple months. Yeah, if you're in Brandon, Manitoba, not so much, but yeah, yes?
A radio campaign, how long would that take?
2 weeks. Yeah, radio's kind of neat that way because you can get frequency quickly. Yeah, because here's what I recommend with radio is you have a frequency of 3 over 2 weeks. That means the average person will hear your ad 3 times in 2 weeks. And that it seems like that third time is what really starts things to go. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, here's my theory. If you're getting return on investment, keep doing it for the rest of your life. Because it's paying for itself, right?
If I can color that one, I ran sedation ads on the radio for about 7 years. And it was one of those ones that I hated hearing because it was me. And it just drove me bonkers, so I literally didn't listen to the radio for 7 years. But we got great results from it. It started to peter off like a couple of years ago, so we just killed it, but it was great.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of that. I'll get you next. One of our clients ran radio ads, and they got really busy. And they said, well, we don't want to pay for the ads anymore because we're busy. I said, okay, but let me tell you something. It's like one of those old water pumps. You know the old ones where you pump like this? You gotta pour a little water in and get it primed up, and finally the water starts to come. I said, as long as you keep pumping, you're gonna keep getting water. But if you start pumping again right away, the water will come back. But the longer you leave it, the more that goes back down into the well, and the longer it's gonna take to get it going again. So a year went by, and now they're starting to get big holes in their schedule. And I said, remember I told you, probably shouldn't stop that? Yeah, well, we should have listened. They started it up again, but here's what happened. As soon as they stopped, their competitor almost copied their ad and started running it. So,
Ouch.
yeah, thank you, radio station, because they've really, it's kind of unethical, really. But anyway, we've started running again, and they now started getting calls again, but it's been running about 2 months now. So, yeah. Oh, how much for the cost of the radio? It really depends on the market. Like Calgary is really expensive, so to get really good coverage on one station, you're going to spend $6,000-7,000 a month. Whereas a smaller market, you're going to spend $2,000 a month. So it really depends. But you should be at least getting 2 times return on investment with radio.
And to add to that, you want to pick a media and own that media in your area. I mean, we do want to bring in as many media as we can, but you want to pick one and own that. That was the first thing that we did actually back in 2007. And we owned radio. And then we moved to something else and we owned that. And we, kind of dominated one at a time. Instead of just spreading thin and not getting enough frequency, that usually hurts people out of the gate too.
Yeah, that's something too. If you're going to do something like direct mail, if you have a budget of whatever it is, and you're thinking, okay, I want to send to 30,000 households one time. I would rather you send to 10,000 households 3 times, because you'll get more return on that than you will sending one big batch just once. Yes?
I was just going to ask what your take is on Yellow Pages. They've really moved their platform from print to online, and they do everything from Facebook, SEO, SEM. They do all of this. What's your experience with some of your clients that maybe you took over and they had Yellow Pages?
They're expensive. They're good, but they're expensive. Yeah. I think they're pretty good. I'll give you an example. One of our clients uses them now. They've actually canceled their contract and going to switch over. But one of the things I found with Yellow Pages is they kind of will just kind of sit there and pedal along unless you say, hey, what's going on today? And then they'll scramble and look at things and they'll make recommendations, and then you've got to say, oh yeah, we should do that, and then they'll make the change. They won't do anything again until the next time that you call them on it. When, for example, in AdWords, you should be constantly looking for negative keywords and constantly trying to do things to get your quality score up. Like this client was running a campaign that was a brand campaign, which means that they were trying to come up for a lot of words that were related to their practice. Well, here's the problem. They were ranking number 1 for their name organically. So now they're competing against themselves. Now, I actually understood why they did it in the first place, but they let it run for 8 months like that. And now that client paid for a lot of clicks that were just their name, and they shouldn't have had to do that. And so they actually told me to go and have a look at it, and I said, well, we should change this. And immediately they started getting more patients out of it because they were paying for patients that they were going to get clicks from down here anyway, right? So that's the only thing I would say with Yellow Pages. They actually are pretty good. They just don't always update things as fast as they should, and they're expensive. They do, however, remember the Bright Local information that I showed you here, where the NAP? Yellow Pages does have a lot of connections with things like Yelp and all of the local citation companies where they can do that for you. And that they're really good at. Again, they're more expensive than going with Bright Local too. So that's, yeah. The book, however, don't bother. Most communities don't even distribute it anymore.
Except what we do with it, though.
What's that?
You've seen what we do with it, right?
No.
We stick a magnet to the front of it.
Oh, yes, I did
Yeah.
see that. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff works. Yes.
That's the use of the phone book if you have one. That is phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
'cause-
do have a phone book and you can do that, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a lot of communities don't even distribute it anymore.
Yeah.
It's a far cry from when we started. It was about $45,000 to $50,000 a year to have a Yellow Pages ad in Calgary.
Yeah. We still have the book, and I'm still in the book, inside the book, and it still pulls well, but it's a long copy ad.
Yes.
It's not an image branding ad. So like we talked about, having that proper copy set up.
Yeah.
That's how the ad is designed. There's not really much in the way of pictures or anything like that.
And your ad, because I remember seeing your ad, it's built basically on the principles I talked about. It's interrupt, engage, educate, and offer. It's not a, here's Northern Dental Care.
Yeah.
It's, here's how we can solve your problems, and it tells that in there. You have room to do that, and then it gives them an offer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it absolutely follows that formula. Anybody else?
Cool.
You're welcome.
All right.
Absolutely. I hope you guys at least got something you can take back and work with.
Thanks, Trent.
Awesome.
All right, so here's what we're going to do, guys. We'll break for lunch for an hour. At the end of lunch, we'll meet back in here because we got to give away that $500, and then we'll break out, okay?